The concept is that there should be a backbone transaction infrastructure layer for the internet, just like we have all of these, sort of servers basically distributed around the world that store and propagate the internet. There should be a similarly robust and similarly powerful, sort of semi-decentralized layer that you can use for transactions. And the interesting thing about that, so what I was skeptical about in so many of these early crypto applications was that they seem to be introducing decentralization for the sake of decentralization. And to an economist, that doesn't really make very much sense, right? Decentralization is really costly, right? And we know this, if you don't have some sort of centralized institution, then instead you end up using, maybe some proof of work system that's extremely slow and very energy intensive. It's costly, it's not free. And so if your application doesn't need decentralization, yes, you can do it. It's a technically feasible thing, but it's not compelling from an economic perspective because the costs are greater than the benefits. But this idea of a global transaction infrastructure layer, and especially one that you could run smart contracts on top of, I think is extraordinarily compelling, both because of this, sort of public infrastructure, interoperability, feature, which in and of itself is a major public good. But on top of that, there are all of these places that don't have secure transaction institutions. And so the potential for financial inclusion by basically extrapolating from the institutions from the places with strong institutions to the places with weaker ones, is extraordinary, right? You could, create a way for small businesses in places that don't have sort of secure currency regimes or sort of strong banking institutions to leverage this global transaction layer that would be as hard to bring down as the internet.
Yeah. It makes me, I'm no Harvard economist, but I remember one of these econ classes I took in my undergrad and read the book Why Nations Fail. And a lot of it was talking about how it took, two examples that were, or two kind of nations very close to each other, and how oftentimes it was the infrastructure embedded within that society that led to its economic success or downfall. And what I hear you describing is a global standard, a global infrastructure that everybody can tap into and rely on. And it starts giving opportunities that are a little bit less geographically dependent or politically dependent, and just opens up opportunity for all.
Yeah, exactly. And that was sort of, and that was sort of both simultaneously an incredibly compelling vision for public good and an incredibly compelling vision for this specific type of technology. And so that, to the extent that there was an eye-opening moment, I think that was it.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that breakdown. I find it just curious what everyone's aha moments are, what their inflection points are, because for people who are believers in Web3, that moment comes. There's a moment where things start clicking. I'm still working on my parents on that one, but a lot of my friends, I've seen it happen, and luckily I get to chat with people like you who have had it.
You're listening to the Unstoppable Podcast, the go-to place for everyone to learn about the latest innovations in Web3, NFTs, and the decentralized web. Welcome to the metaverse.